The delay. Let's start. So in the last class, we discussed about the AWS introduction to AWS. I just want to go for it. I just want to go for a recap of that. So how can I go for a recap? So I just want to show you what is cloud, how to configure cloud. Okay. What are the different types of clouds that we are having, and networking concepts. So in the last class, we completed the subnetting. As per the words of the people who has attended the last class, I understood that we completed the subnetting concept. So today we have to discuss all this as a recap. But one thing I want to tell you here is this is the last and final demo of this sessions. And from tomorrow onwards, whoever has paid the or else whoever has enrolled for the course, they will get the link. Okay, they will get a paid link, that is a GoToMeeting link. You will get a GoToMeeting link. And tomorrow we will start AWS configuration. Now let us go back and check out what is what. I'm not going for in-depth analysis of each and everything. Why? Because in the last class only I have given you what is IP address, what is subnet mask, and how to do the subnetting concept. So today I will be going with the a small touch and go method. Like, see, I'm not going very in depth into the concepts of networking. I'm not going very in depth into the all the things. So I'm just going with the basics. So here, first of all, you need to understand what is meant by cloud. A cloud. So cloud means, so many people will say that it's a storage. So actually, whenever the cloud was initiated or else cloud was implemented into the IT world, of course it is worked as a storage only. But later on, whenever it's keep on developing, now at a particular point of time, it is giving so many different services. Like what I can say, it is providing the servers, okay, servers, storage, and some of the runtime environments, and next databases. Like this, 200 plus of services are available in the AWS or else in the cloud. Especially in AWS, we are having 200 plus services with machine learning and artificial intelligence. We are having 200 plus services. Now, if I have to define cloud, a cloud is a virtual environment created in a remote location and providing the application access for the users. Okay, so it's just like a virtual environment. So whenever you are seeing here, if you are working in a company, your company will have the physical servers, physical databases, and physical network configuration. Everything you have to do manually. But when you go to the cloud, in cloud, you don't need to do anything manually. So most probably the underlying hardware, everything will be provided by the cloud infrastructure provider itself, cloud service provider or else cloud infrastructure provider. Now, when we are getting these services from the cloud service provider, so we just need to focus on our application deployment, application development, and application deployment. There are the applications which will be generated or else which will be created, and if there are any bugs, so we need to only concentrate on the application. We don't need to take tension about the physical servers, physical network, and physical hardware, everything. So everything will be maintained by the service provider itself. Cloud service providers like Azure, Amazon Web Services, and Google Cloud Platform. These are the service providers who will provide you the services. Now, the next one is, first of all, whenever you want to connect to the cloud, if you want to connect to the cloud or else cloud resources, in cloud, what we will be doing, we will be creating some resources, some servers, some databases. So if I want to connect to that resources and if I want to connect to the databases, what I have to do, I need to configure certain services, or else I need to communicate through the internet. So if I want to configure the services and if I want to communicate with the service, for example, let me show you. I will log into my AWS console. Sign into the console. Now, when you see here, what I am going to do, here I will deploy an EC2 mission. So when I deploy this EC2 mission, now what I will do, if I want to access this server, so why we will create some servers to provide the services to the users. How the servers will provide the services to the users? By installing the packages. Now, if you see here, the server is installed in North Virginia region, which is in US location. I am sitting in India location. How I can connect from India location to the US location? For the connection of my client machine to the server. So what I have to say, if you see in this diagram, my server is located in US location and there is a client machine in India location. So my laptop or whatever my desktop is in India location. So I have to connect. If I want to connect my server, so then what I will do, I can transmit the data or else I can send the credentials through internet. So what is this internet? What is intranet? What is meant by a network? Connectivity of two or more devices is called as a network. So to access any device, to access or else to make the communication between any device, we need to have the network configuration. Without network configuration, we cannot do anything. So this is about your network. So when the network configuration is there, the next thing is what is the what is the key feature that we will use in the networking, or else what is the key component that we will use in the networking to make the communication. The key component that we will use in the networking is IP address. Without IP address, we cannot make the communication between any two devices. If I want to make the communication between two devices, or else if I want to transmit the data from one device to the another device, definitely I need to have an IP address. Without IP address, it is it is not possible to transmit the data from one computer to the another computer, or else from one server to the another server. So for data transmission purpose again. So what is this IP address? IP address means internet protocol where it will have a certain set of rules. Okay. And when you see here, the IP address is of two types. One is IPv4 and the other one is IPv6. We will not discuss about IPv6. Why? Because nowadays very less companies are using the IPv6 IP address. Majority number of the companies are using IPv4 IP address only. So when we are using that, when we are using the IPv4, then we need to understand, then we need to have a very clear-cut understanding about IPv4. If you see the IPv4, what I am saying, IP addresses are responsible to make the communication between the devices. The architecture of IPv4 will be looking like this. So there will be x dot x dot x dot x. So each and every, there will be four numbers will be created, and why we are creating the four numbers and what is this? Actually, this portions, wherever you are seeing x, there you will have a decimal number. The example I can show you like this. The example of IP address will be looking like this: 192.168.1.100. If you can see, there are four different numbers ranging from any number that will be from 0 to 255. You can have any number ranging from 0 to 255 in each and every portion. Now here you can, in the first portion, you can have 0 to 255. In second portion also, you can have 0 to 255. In the third, you can have 0 to 255. And fourth also, you can have 0 to 255. So in any portion, you can have a range of numbers between 0 to 255. You will not get apart from, so beyond 255, 256 number will not be available in the networking. So whenever you see here, after looking into this, so our devices will have certain IPs. For each and every device will have a certain IP. Now IPv4 addresses are only 4.2 billion IP addresses. 4.2 billion IP addresses. So when there are 4.2 billion IPs only are there. Now if you see the world population is all around 8 billion. So for 8 billion people, 4.2 billion IP addresses are sufficient. So as per the stats, as per the math, those are not sufficient. So what I have to do, I have to increase the number of IP addresses. But in IPv4, we will have a constant of, or else we will have a certain number only. That is 420 crores of numbers will be available. Now, how we can increase the capacity, or else how we can provide that 4.2 billion IPs to the multiple users, to the somewhere like 8 billion users, how I can provide the IP addresses. So to provide the IP addresses, there is an organization for networking that is called as INA. This organization divided the IP addresses into two types of IPs. Divided the IP addresses into two types of IPs. One is private IP. One is private IP, and the next one is public IP. Private and public. So what is this private IP? Private IPs are the IPs which are used within the organization. For example, I'm having a company, or else in my home, or else in my hostel, in my company, wherever I am working with. So that entire network, home network or company network will have a private IP. So private IPs are the free of cost IPs. Wherever you can see, private IPs are the free of cost IPs. So you don't need to pay for them. Okay, fine. Private IPs are the free of cost IPs. So within the organization, so what is the problem with having the public IPs? For example, I'm having 10 computers. The first thing is, if at all, if I'm having 10 computers, if I am assigning public IP to each and every computer, so what is the necessity of assigning the public IP and what is the necessity of assigning private IP? You will come to know about this. For example, there is a computer. If this computer wants to communicate with the internet servers, there is a server called as technical servers or else geek4geek.com. Like there is some technical websites or else there are some social media websites. There are some video streaming websites. If you want to access any particular servers, any servers which are hosted in the website, which are there inside on the internet, if you want to make communication, you need to have a public IP. Without public IP, you cannot communicate. The name itself indicating that public IP address. Public IP addresses are the IP addresses which are helpful for the end users or else the clients to make the communication with the internet. But the public IPs are costly. So whatever you are paying for the internet service provider, so the internet service provider will charge you for the public IP also for your home whenever you connect internet. So what the internet service provider will do. So for example, you are having in your home, you are having multiple devices and you want internet. For your home, you want internet. So this is your home. Inside the home, you are having a desktop, you are having laptop, you are having mobile phones, like that you are having so many devices. Now for all these devices, if you want internet, what you will do? You will say that I want a Wi-Fi connection. You will ask your parents or else you yourself will create a Wi-Fi connection. So to create a Wi-Fi connection, what you are going to do? You will be requesting the internet service provider to create or else to make the connection. So the internet service provider person will come to your home and he will install a router. He will keep a router inside your home. And after keeping this router inside your home, he will connect a cable to the router. He will connect a cable to the router from the outside. He will connect a cable. And then he will say that now we have configured each and everything. You can access your internet. He will say that. But actually what is going to happen here? The thing is, whenever he says that we have configured everything, now he assigned a public IP at the, so whenever whatever the cables that are coming to your router, and whenever you are accessing the router, in router he assigned a public IP. So public IP will be assigned, and this router will have a feature called as NAT. This router will have a feature called as NAT, which is nothing but network address translation. Now let me show you one thing. What is the IP address of my computer? You can see IP config /all. If I give like this, so the IP address of my computer is 192.168.29.177. 192.168.29.177. But if you can see here, if I go for Google, or else I will not go for this, let me show you IP info.ip. So here, if you see the IP address of my computer, or else the IP address is displaying like IP info.io 4937. Why it is displaying like 4937 and here it is displaying like 192.168.29.177? What is the difference in between this? So now what router will do? In router we are having multiple options. Okay, you will have DHCP, you will have NAT, like that you will be having so many different services that are integrated in your router. Now what router will do? The router will assign the IP addresses to your devices. So if you see, whenever there is a power loss, or else if you are disconnected from your router, the IP address will not be there. So who will be continuously providing, or else who will provide the IP address to you? The router will provide the IP address to you, and the router will provide the private IP. Router will provide the private IP address. So as I already said you that private IP addresses are free of cost. You don't need to pay for them. So what router will do? Router will provide a range of private IPs to all the resources, to all the devices in your home. So when it is providing the IP addresses to all the devices in the home, and the IP address is a private IP. Now, when the device is requesting any data, the data will be reaching to the router, and it will map, or else with the help of network address translation, it will convert the private IP into the public IP and sends the and request the data from the internet. Whenever you are getting the data from the internet, now what router will do? Router will again convert that public IP into private IP and send back to the concerned server or concerned device. Now, this is what happens in the backend. When the private IP is requesting some data, when my computer is requesting some data, the computer will be having an IP address called as private IP, and this private IP will be reaching to the router, and now router will do the NATing. So NATing means network address translation. The private IP is now converted into the public IP and sends into the internet. And from the internet, if any data that you are getting back, now the router will convert the public IP into private IP, sends to the desired computer. This is what going to happen in the backend. Now here you can see there is a private IP and public IP. Simply one thing you need to understand. So private IPs are used within the organization and public IPs are used all over the internet. So this is the main thing that you need to understand. Any questions here? Did you understand what is the main difference between public IP and private IP? Any questions? Fine then. So that's about your public IP and private IP. And now within the organization, we will use the private IP. Okay. And over the internet, we will use the public IP. So that's about your private and public IPs. Now, whenever we are configuring this, so the most important thing here is we will configure the private IPs. What are the ranges of private IPs? The ranges of private IPs are 10.10.0.0.02, 10.255.255.255. This is one of the range, and 172.16.0.02, 172.31.255.255, and the next one is 192.168.0.02, 192.168.255.255. These are the ranges of your private IPs. Okay, 255.255. These are the ranges of your private IPs. So you need to remember these ranges. Why? Because whenever we are going for the VPC configuration, there we will be using this private IPs only. So private IPs are very, very, very important for you. Why? Because in each and every VPC configuration, we will be using the private IPs. So this is about your IP address configuration, and we will be having so many other things like subnet, subnet mask, and subnetting concept. So those are all the things you will get in the video format. So whatever the classes that we have completed in the last class, so we will have the subnetting concept from videos from the last class. So what is meant by subnetting? So I will just give an introduction so that you can have a clarity. For example, I am having an office with some 60,000 employees are there, or else some 1,000 employees are there in my company. If I am having some 1,000 employees in my company, and I am running this company. So if I want to run 1,000 employees, do I need multiple teams, or else I need a single team? Within a single team, I can manage 1,000 employees, or else what I have to do? I have to segregate them, or what I have to do? If in a company there are 1,000 employees, and if all comes under a single category, how about the administration? And if there are different teams are there, how about the administration? Whether the administration will be easy or not? If there is a different teams are there, the administration will be easy or not?
Yes, it will be easy.
It will be easy to manage the network also. What I am going to do? So whatever the VPC that I am configuring in AWS, I am going to divide that VPC into subnets for the management purpose, which means VPC is nothing but a network boundary. For example, so here you need to understand the types of clouds. What are the different types of clouds? One is public cloud and the other one is private cloud. So there is another one that is hybrid cloud. We don't discuss more about that, but anyways, the two types of clouds, actually three types: private, public, and hybrid. We will not discuss about the hybrid. We will discuss about the only two clouds, that is public cloud and private cloud. Now, can you tell me what is meant by public cloud? The name itself indicating that public cloud. What is meant by a public cloud? Public means, first of all, you have to understand this particular term, public. What is meant by public? Public means anybody from anywhere, he can access the resources, he can create the resources. For example, I am sitting in Hyderabad or else I am sitting in Mumbai. So I can simply, what I can do, I can create my own resources. I can create my own resources with the help of the public cloud. If I have an AWS account or else if I have an Azure account or else if I have a GCP account, so simply I can create the resources. So here you need to understand one thing. We don't require any large scale companies to deploy the servers, to deploy the application. If we are having a cloud account, we can configure our devices and applications. Okay. So that is what a public cloud is all about. Anybody can access the cloud from anywhere if he is having an account. So now I am having an account. So now I am creating a server for one of the company. So now what is meant by VPC? That is what I am telling you here. Now I am creating a server for one of the company. Okay, here you need to understand what I am saying. Public cloud, everyone can accept. For example, a company is there which is creating its server in US location, which is creating a server in US location. Now its rivalry company is also there. Its rivalry company is also there. It is also creating the server in the same region. It is also creating the server in the same region. Now, my question here is whether there is any chance of privacy issue. Is there any chance of privacy issue? Why? Because two rivalry company servers are created in the same location and same region. Is there any chance of privacy issue? Yes or no? Obviously, there is a chance of privacy issue. There might be a chance that the data from one server can be theft by the another organization. So to overcome this problem, we are going to create a permission boundary. Here I am going to create a boundary. Okay, and that boundary is called as a VPC. We are going to create a network boundary, and that boundary is called as a VPC. So if I have to define VPC, a VPC is a network boundary created in AWS configuration to restrict the access of another VPC resources to the VPC resources. So what I can define VPC as, the name itself indicating that virtual private cloud. VPC, the full form of VPC is virtual private cloud. Virtual private cloud. Just forget about virtual. Here you are having a word called as private. So can you tell me what is meant by a private cloud? What is a private cloud? You understood the public cloud is the cloud that can be accessed by each and every person all around the world. Now, what is meant by a private cloud? By looking into the name, you can simply say this. What is meant by a private cloud? What is meant by private? At least answer this.
It access is restricted to one network, and the organization having access to it only can
Exactly.
access.
Only a single organization can access the resources in that network. So that is called as a private cloud. Now here you are having, before that what you are having, virtual. Virtual means imaginary. So whatever the resources that we are creating in the AWS are all the virtual resources only. Now here you can see virtual private cloud. Now can you define that? So this is a cloud which is configured for a single organization. Okay, single organization or single cloud. So that is what a VPC is all about. Okay, now let us go back and create the VPC. Okay, so before creating the VPC, I just want to introduce you to the global infrastructure of AWS. I think it is completed in the last class, but still I just want to give a recap of that. So what is meant by global infrastructure? So my AWS service provider will not provide the services from a single location. So I will have the services all around the world. For example, if I am having my servers in only North Virginia region in US location only, So the load on my servers will be very high. The load on the data center will be very high. Why? Because from all around the world, some millions and billions of people are there who are accessing the VPCs. So there are some millions and millions of people are there who are accessing the services or resources. Whenever there are some millions of people who are creating their resources, if at all, if I create my data center in a single location, then it is not possible to provide the resources to the user. So what I have to have, I need to have the data center all around the world. AWS will create the data centers all around the world. Now that is the global infrastructure. Simply what I have to say, the data centers of AWS, data centers of AWS will be there all around the world. All around the world. Now, wherever they create or else wherever they select, first of all, they will select a region. First of all, they choose the region which is very feasible for them to create the data center, to construct the multiple data centers. So for example, there are in Hyderabad, I want to create a data center. So they will find out a very good location. From Hyderabad, they want to create another data center within a distance of some 100 kilometers. So they will create it somewhere else. So like this, you will be having multiple data centers near to each other. Then that is called as a region, a geographical location where AWS data centers are created, or else a geographical location. Simply, I can call it as a geographical location is called as a region. And now the region is divided into what I can say. And now the region will be divided into, if AWS is selecting any part of the world, then that is called as a region. Now this region is further divided into availability zones. Region, now it is divided into availability zone. What is meant by an availability zone? Each and every region must have minimum of 2 availability zones. Minimum of 2 availability zones should be there. And inside the availability zone, you will have the data center. Now, what if I have to define what is an availability zone? An availability zone is a facility. An availability zone is a facility where data centers are created. An availability zone is a facility where data centers are created. One or more data centers are created inside an availability zone. For example, this is one of the agent, nothing but availability zone. This is an agent, and here I am having another availability zone. This is another availability zone. Now, if there are 2 availability zones, in those 2 availability zones, I can have my data centers. So why we need to have minimum of 2 availability zone? Can anybody say this? This is the data center which I will create inside the availability zone. Now, why we need to have minimum of 2 availability zones? Per region, definitely you need to have 2 availability zones. Without 2 availability zones, you cannot create a region. But why? What is the reason?
Uh,
Hmm?
Ability zones are like data centers. So if one data center goes down, then there will be no like recovery.
Exactly. So why we need to have multiple availability zones? The reason here is, here inside the data center, we will have multiple servers. Inside the data center, we will have multiple servers and multiple physical servers. So many virtual machines will be running. So many applications will be running like that. For example, whenever this data center is down, this availability zone is completely down. So still the user should not get any disturbances with his application access. So for that reason, what I am going to do, I will create another availability zone. And in that availability zone, I am going to create another data center. And inside the data center, I can create my own physical servers or else virtual machines like that. You will be creating so many different options will be available in the availability zone. Now, simply if I have to define what is meant by an availability zone is a facility which can be incorporating data centers, which is having multiple servers, multiple devices like servers, routers, and networking components and security components like firewalls. So these are all there inside an availability zone. So now how data center will be looking like? Data center is a huge facility. It's a huge place or a huge facility where you can have multiple racks. So inside the data center, what you can see here is you will have multiple racks. So this is how your data center will be looking like. And inside this data center, what you can have inside the data center, you will have multiple racks. These racks are helpful for you to create the physical servers. Those are called as in racks. We will have different types of servers. Either we can have rack servers, or else we can have tower servers, we can have blade servers. Like that, we will be having multiple servers, and all the servers are mounted into these racks. And inside the servers, using some virtualization software. Here you got some new term called as virtualization. I don't know. Maybe majority of the people don't know about this virtualization, but if you, I think you can understand what is meant by virtualization. Virtualization means, for example, if I am having a physical server which is having huge resources. Resources are nothing but CPU and CPU, RAM, and hard disk space. These are all comes under the virtualization. Sorry, these are all comes under the resources. Now, for example, for my server, I am having somewhere like 128 GB of RAM and some 5 to 6 CPU are there. Virtual CPUs or all CPUs are there. So this is my physical server where I can have 128 GB of RAM, 128 GB of RAM, and some 4 CPUs are there. 4 central processing units or 4 microprocessors are there, which are helpful for us to run the application. But here you need to understand a point, that is the whatever the servers that you are integrating, whatever the physical servers that you are integrating, on the physical servers, you can run only a single mission or a single application. You can run only a single application. So the data, databases, and the web interface, everything. So only one web application or else one application you can run on a server. So it is recommended that to run only one application. Of course, you can run multiple applications also, but it is recommended to run a single application. Why? The reason, there are so many reasons are there. Suddenly, if the load on the application is increased, to overcome that load, we need to have high resources where you will have in a single server. For example, if the application is running on a runtime called as Java, the other application is running on a runtime called as Python. So both application will have some issues. Okay, why? Because there will be version difference, there will be language barriers, like that. Language barriers in the sense, one application is using Java language and the other one is using Python language. So there will be a code difference will be there, and environment difference will be there. So that is not recommended to run multiple application in a single server. So what about the resources? Whatever the huge resources that you are having inside the server, the huge resources will be useless. So to overcome this problem, what we are doing, we are implementing a special type of concept called as virtualization. We are entering into a special type of concept called as virtualization. This virtualization, using this virtualization technology, we can separate our physical resources, or else we can separate our physical server into virtual servers, and we can create the virtual missions. And these virtual missions will have multiple operating systems. Either you can have Windows operating system on one mission, and the other mission can have the Linux operating system, and the another mission can have some Unix operating system. That depends upon your requirement and your application requirement. So what virtualization will do? Virtualization tool will help you to create the virtual missions. So depending upon your configurations, so it will create the virtual missions. So here you need to understand about this virtualization. So virtualization is a technique to optimally or else optimizely use our resources. Okay. So by creating virtualization, what we can do, we can create multiple instances of multiple operating systems and multiple versions of softwares. So that's about your virtualization. Now, why I am discussing all these things? Because of the data centers, or else because of any other thing, we are not discussing this. In the starting, I had a question: how VPCs can be created? What are we going to do? How boundaries are created? For that, I have to say about all these things. So now, when we coming back to the come back to the VPC, when you come back to the VPC, a VPC can be created for storing multiple resources, and a VPC is a secured and isolated network. So a VPC is a secured and isolated network. So that is what I want to say. Now, for example, there is a region. Look into this. There is a region that is US East 1. There is a region called as US East 1, and I want to create a server. I want to create a server. So in a public cloud, my server is not only a server. There will be some thousands and lakhs of servers are there. So if you want to create a server, how can you identify that this is my server? Or else how can you set a boundary for that? So to create a boundary, we are having an option called as VPC. So inside the inside the region, you are having availability zones. Inside the region, you are having availability zones. So I will show you there are 3 availability zones. Availability zone 1, availability zone 2, and availability zone 3. Now, what is my requirement? I want to create, what I want to create here is I want to create my server in any one of this availability zone. Okay. So how to create that? So to create that, what I am going to do here is I am going to create a virtualization. Sorry, I am going to create a virtual private cloud. How can I configure that? What is the necessity of creating that? So again, I am repeating this. Inside this availability zones, we will have the data centers, and on the data centers, we can install the servers. Already we are having some servers inside this availability zone. So suppose, for example, there is an server. So if I try to install the server inside this availability zone, if I try to install the server inside the availability zone, then there might be a chance of making the communication. So to overcome this privacy issue, what I am going to do, I am going to configure a VPC. So a VPC is a virtual private cloud which will be secured and isolating from one VPC to the another VPC. Now here I am going to create a network boundary. Nothing but your VPC. So here I am going to create a network boundary. This is the network boundary which I am creating. Now inside this VPC, what I am going to do, I am going to divide this VPC into multiple subnets. So whenever you are configuring VPC, you have to provide the CIDR values. When you are providing the CIDR values, what you will be specifying, /16, /18, /20, like that, these values you will be specifying. Slash means number of network bits in a subnets. Okay. So please go through the video which we have discussed in the last class. Now, first of all, let us create the VPC and then we will be going further into the creation of subnets. So you have to answer all the questions. Now the questions are like this. So let me go back to the VPC in the another region. Hold on. Okay. So this is the VPC in the another region. Per region, you can have only 5 VPCs. Apart from that, you cannot create more VPCs. Go to the VPC. Now I want to create the VPC. So create a VPC. Okay. Hold on. Let us get back. So I am going to create a VPC. So whenever we are creating a VPC, it is just a test VPC. In tomorrow's class also, we will discuss about the VPC configuration. Don't worry. So just I am showing you how to create a test VPC. Okay. Later on, we will be going in depth. Tomorrow also, I am going to recollect, and whoever has enrolled for the course, tomorrow you will get a paid link. So this is the free link which will be expired today, and from tomorrow onwards you will have a paid link. So let us create a VPC. So to create a VPC, CGIT, this is the name of the VPC, and the CIDR is 10.1.0.0/16, and create the VPC. So the VPC will be created. Once the VPC is created, now you can see the point here is whenever you are creating a VPC, the VPC will be expanded to the entire region. So why? I already said you that. For example, if I am having a server in a single availability zone, for example, I am installing a server in a single availability zone. If the availability zone is down, then that is a single point of failure. So I cannot have like that. So what I need to do, I need to configure my servers in the multiple availability zones. So if I have to configure the servers in multiple availability zone, then what should be done? So this is also my network. This availability also my network, and here also I need to create another network. Here also I need to create another network. So when you create a VPC, the entire network which will be occupied, or the VPC will be expanded to the entire region. So in region, in any availability zone, you can create your servers, not only in a single availability zone. So in region, in any availability zone, why the VPC will be in the all another availability zones also. So if you see here, I have created a VPC. What is that? CGIT VPC. This is the VPC name. Now what I want to do, if you see here /16 value. So if you remember that in the last class, I said about the subnetting, right? So when I said about the subnetting, what is the /16 will represent? What /16 will represent? Did I said that?
Host address or network.
Exactly. /16 is network bits. So we will have 16 network bits, which is nothing but the subnet mask of the /16 is 255.255.0.0. Can you tell me how many devices I can configure inside this subnet? So if you can see, whatever the /16 value is there, /16 I can configure up to 65,000 devices, 65,535 devices I can configure. Now, if you see here in the VPC, you are having /16, which means that within this VPC, I can configure 65,000 devices. But configuring 65,000 devices and managing them under a single network is impossible. So if I configure 65,000 devices and working with that 65,000 devices and managing the 65,000 devices is impossible. So to overcome this problem, what I am going to do, I am going to create some subnets. So the name itself indicating that subnet, networking, or else what I can say, it's a division of a very big network. So I'm going to divide my VPC into small networks. Those are called as subnets. So I'm going to create a subnet, and CGIT in this VPC only I'm going to create the subnet. Okay. So what I can do here is the subnet name will be CGIT-subnet-1, and the preference will be in any availability zone you can create. I am going to create in US East 1A, and the CIDR block is 10.1.1.0/24, which means that /24 means you will have 256 IP addresses. These 256 IP addresses are all from the scope of your VPC only. So from the 65,000 devices, you are taking only 256 addresses from the 65,000 devices. What are there in the VPC? From the 65,000 IPs, what are there inside the VPC? Among those 65,000 IPs, you are collecting a set of 256 IPs. So that is the reason why you have provided /24. So these 256 IPs are also an integral part of your VPC IPs only. So this is how I have divided one network. Create the subnet. If you want to create another subnet, you can create another subnet also. Create the subnet. that is CGIT. In the CGIT VPC, I want to create the subnet, that is CGIT hyphen subnet hyphen 2. In availability zone 2, 1B, I want to create it 10.1.2.0/24, which means that 10.1.1.0/24, there you are having 256 IP addresses from the 65,000 IPs. Now, from the remaining 65,000 IPs, we are collecting another 256 and creating another subnet. So that is 10.1.2.0/24 and create the subnet. Second subnet is created in the second availability zone. Now here you can see, this is one of the subnet which we have created, and what I can do, and another subnet will be created. So this is the another subnet which we have created in availability zone 2, that is US East 1B. Okay, this is the subnet which we have created. And if you want, you can create one more subnet in US East 1C also. Here also you can create one more subnet if you want. So let me go back there. Create the subnet CGIT hyphen subnet hyphen 3, and in US East 1C, in the another availability zone I am creating, the CIDR is 10.1.3.0/24. Okay, create the subnet. So third subnet is also created. Like that, you can create the subnets. So a network of networks. So what I can say, these are the small networks which we are creating from the very big network. So after creating this, now here, if you want, if you see the diagram, we have a VPC, which is a logical network. Inside the VPC, we are having the subnets. Now, my question here is, if I am installing a server over here, inside this, I am installing a server. So this will be very overwhelming for you, but in the next class, you will understand each and everything in detail. But anyways, I will repeat the same concept in the next class also. Don't worry. So here we are installing the server. When we are installing the server over here, the question is how server will communicate with the external resources. For example, so this is the internet. Okay, so my client is there. I am working from Hyderabad. So if I want to connect to my server, obviously I will be having the internet connectivity, so I can connect to the internet, and from the internet, if I want to connect to the server which is created inside this subnet, if I want to connect to the server which is created inside this subnet, what is required for me? Do I require anything? For example, if anybody of your friends or family wants to, or else they want to come to your home, they want to enter into your home, or else they want to exit from your home. So what they require? For example, if anybody coming into your home or else going outside of your home, through which they can go and through which they can come in. So what should be there to enter into your home? Guys, you are not first standard students. You are not LKG students. This is a simple question I am asking. I am not asking a technical concept. I am asking a simple question. If anybody wants to enter into your home, or else anybody wants to go outside of your home, what you require? What is required? What we
Door
need
access.
exactly, at least. So how many students are there? Hold on. Who said the answer?
Manish.
Manish. So remaining won't go through the door. Remaining won't enter into their home through the door, I think. I just ask a simple question. It's a general knowledge question. You don't know the general knowledge also. It is very, very ashamed. You are not small kids. So if with this attitude, or else with this thinking, how you can go into how you can crack an interview, and after going into the office, whether you will give the response to at least for your superiors when they are in the Zoom meeting, or else nowadays meetings are happening online only. If they ask a question, whether you will sit calmly or else you will reply. So if you don't reply, there is no problem for me. I can go on, I can keep on saying my concept, and I can go on with very fast pace. Within, frankly speaking, if I have to complete AWS, I can complete AWS by 6 weekends. I can complete AWS by 6 weekends only. I don't require 10 weekends also. So I'm expecting some answers. I'm expecting some liveliness in my class. I don't want some calmness in my class. Anyways, fine. So when you go back here, there will be a gateway. Here we are going to configure a gateway. This gateway will be helpful for us to make the communication with the internet. So I'm going to create a gateway, and this gateway is called as internet gateway. So through the internet gateway, what I can do, I can transmit the data from my server, and it will be connected to the internet gateway, and this internet gateway will transmit the data into the internet. So this is the entry and exit point of your VPC. This is the entry and exit point of your VPC. What is that? The internet gateway. So now what I have done from the starting onwards, if you see, I just created a CGIT hyphen CGIT VPC with the CIDR 10.1.0.0/16. This is the VPC which I created. And after creating the VPC, what I have done, I just created a subnet, that is CGIT hyphen subnet hyphen 1. Okay, with the CIDR 10.1.1.0/24. This is the CIDR which I am using. Ten dot 1.2.0/24 subnet 2. There is one more subnet, subnet 3 also created. Like this, I have created 3 subnets. Now, what I need to do, I need to integrate my internet gateway, IGW. I want to connect my internet gateway to my VPC. First of all, I need to create, and then I need to connect it to my VPC. So what I want to do, I will go to my VPC, go to the internet gateways, create an internet gateway. So I can call it as CGIT-IGW. Create the internet gateway. After creating the internet gateway, attach to the VPC. Okay. Attach the internet gateway. Once you have attached the internet gateway, so now servers will be created. Servers will be created inside your subnets. Now the point is, who will tell the servers that if you want to go outside of your, if you want to go outside into the network, if you want to transmit the data into the network, you need to pass through the internet gateway. So you are very new to a particular village or else particular district. Now, if you want to go to a particular destination, what you will do, you will set a navigation, you will set a route, you will set a route map. Okay, in the Google Maps or else in anywhere. So you will set a route map. In the same manner, here we have to create a routing table. It is like a route map. So which will tell my server that if you want to communicate with the internet, you have to go through the internet gateway. So how I will do that, if you can see, where is it? Hold on. So here, what I am going to say, I will go to the route tables. Route tables are the routing tables, or else route tables will specify the route for your servers. Now, what I am going to do, create a route table. Okay, so the route table is CGIT hyphen route, and the VPC will be in which VPC I want to create. I want to create in the CGIT VPC. Create the route table. Once you have created this route table, what you can do, you can specify the routes. You can specify the routes. Where is the CGIT routes? My question again here is, if you see here, destination 10.1.0.0/16. So in which VPC I am creating? In which VPC I am creating? I am creating in the CGIT VPC. What is the CIDR of the CGIT VPC? What is the CIDR that I have provided for the CGIT VPC? What is the network that I provided? So the same network, right? 10.1.0.0/16. And the target is local, which means that within the VPC, you can have multiple subnetworks, and the servers in multiple subnetworks, by defaultly, they will communicate with each other. The meaning of this route is within the VPC you can have multiple subnets, and the servers in the multiple subnets can communicate with each other. So you don't need to specify a route. Now again I am going to add another route. The route is if I want to communicate with the internet. So 0.0.0/0 in the sense it is the IP address of the internet. Simply I can say that. But actually there is a long process that I have to say. Why? Because the servers don't know from where the requests are coming. So if they want to provide the response. So 0.0.0 means unknown. The meaning of 0.0.0.0/0 means unknown network. So if my server has to communicate with the unknown network, then nothing but your internet. So if the server has to communicate with the internet, then the data has to go outside the internet with the help of internet gateway. So with the help of internet gateway, check this out. Save the changes. So now I specified the route also. So what I specified, if you want to transmit the data into the internet, so connect to the internet gateway, transmit the data to the internet gateway. I specified the route. Okay, so that's done. And the next thing here is, hold on. So you need to understand one more thing. The second thing is subnet association. So subnet association. First thing is I specified the route. What I specified in this routing table, I specified that. So if any subnets that is connected to this routing table, that routing table or else that subnet servers, if any subnet is connected to this routing table, that subnet servers can communicate with the internet. How? Because in the routes I specified the internet gateway. In the routes I specified the internet gateway. So that is the reason if any server that is deployed in a subnet which is connected to this route, there will be a subnet. So how can I add this? Let me show you. I will go to the subnet association, edit subnet association, and I am going to add the subnets CGIT1, CGIT2, and CGIT3. All these three subnets are added to my public routing table. Whatever the routing table is the CGIT route. So I have added all the subnets to that routing table, which says that. So the meaning of adding this subnets is, so whatever the subnets that are added to this routing table, those subnets can be an integral part of that routing table, which means that they can be able to connect to the internet gateway. So the servers that are deployed in the routing table, the servers that are deployed in the subnets, whatever the subnets that are connected to this routing table, those servers can communicate with the internet. Okay, so that is what the meaning of routing table. So after creating the routing table, here the question is, have you ever went for any airport? Have you gone to airport? Have you gone to airport, or else have you gone to any shopping mall? When you are entering into the airport or shopping mall, whether the security guards will welcome you or they will do some security checks. They will do both. They will welcome you, and after welcoming you, they will do the security checks. In the same manner, whenever the data is trying to enter into your server, then here it has to undergo some security checks. So these security checks are performed by the security groups. Here we are going to provide certain ports. So we are going to allow certain traffic to enter into my server. So when we are allowing certain traffic to enter into my server, I am going to allow only my trusted traffic. Untrusted traffic will not be entered into the servers. So what I can do by configuring security groups, I can restrict the server access. I can restrict the traffic. I can restrict the data that is entering into the server. So these are all the things that I can do with the help of security groups. So here you are having a security group. Here you are having two types of rules. One is inbound rules and the other one is outbound rules. Inbound, the name itself called as inbound. Inbound means incoming traffic, which the traffic that is trying to enter into your server is called as an inbound rule. And outbound, what is meant by outbound? Outbound is nothing but the traffic that is going outside of your server. So there is no danger with the traffic that is going outside of our server. Why? Because we are sending the traffic. So we know what traffic is sending. But the traffic that is entering into a server, that is the main problem. So any traffic can enter into the server will cause harm to your servers. Okay, there will be malicious traffic. There are some hackers who is trying to access the data. So there will be a problem. So to overcome this problem, what I am going to do, I am going to allow only particular traffic. I am going to allow particular data. So that data will be depending on the protocols. In networking terminology, there will be certain protocols which will be allowing certain data. So to allow certain data into your computer, we need to follow certain protocols. Protocols are nothing but rules. We need to follow certain rules. Now here what I am going to do, inbound rules, edit inbound rules. So as it is a demo session, we are not completely into the concepts. I am going to select all traffic anywhere. From anywhere, I am allowing the traffic to enter into the server. But actually, we should not give it like this in your, actually, we should not give like this in your offices, in your company. You cannot provide this. If you provide this, then you will be terminated. So you need to be very careful. You should not give like this. It is, as it is a demo purpose, I am giving that. Okay. This is how you can create the security groups. So just now we have created, or else just now we have completed the VPC creation. So how we have created the VPC? First we created the VPC. Inside the VPC we have created the subnets, and inside to the VPC we have connected the internet gateway, and then we configured routing tables and security groups. These are the 5 steps you have to do for creating the VPC. These are the 5 steps you have to do for creating the VPC. So if VPC is not there, if VPC is not there, you cannot create the servers. So let me show you an example. For example, I will go to any one of the where is this? I will go to any one of the region. Let me go to North California region. Here you can see, I will go to your VPCs. I'm having only one VPC that is given defaultly. So if I select this and actions, delete the VPC, I want to delete this the default VPC. I want to delete the default VPC. Okay, when I delete this, if I am trying to create an EC2 instance in this North California region without VPC, what is going to happen? Go to the EC2 instance. Whenever I am trying to create the server or as any instance, so launch the instance. So we will provide instance ID, application, and all the things. And if you see here, definitely we need to select the network settings. Here we need to provide the VPC. So no VPC is found. Either this account doesn't have any VPC in this region or any invalid search has been entered. Please refine the search query and create a new VPC. So if we don't have any VPC, we cannot create the servers. Not only servers, we cannot create any resources. So VPCs are the primary blocks of your entire AWS session. So AWS, whatever the resources that you want to create, any AWS resource you want to create, or else you want to configure any services, each and everything can be configured within the VPC only. If you don't have the VPC, you cannot configure anything. So VPC is just like a, what I can say, it is just like your company. So it is like your on-premises environment, on-premises company. So without VPC, no another resources or else no another services cannot be configured. So it is very, very mandatory to configure the VPC, subnets, internet gateway, routing table, and finally security groups. So these are all the things you need to keep in mind. So that's about your VPC configuration. Tomorrow you will have a very in-depth analysis of VPC and how to create the VPC. Also, again, I will repeat this, but this is a basic. So these are the 5 terms that we will be using. So tomorrow I will discuss about VPC configuration, and then we will be discussing about the VPC peering also. If possible, I will go with the VPC NAT gateway also. So my agenda is that tomorrow we need to complete VPC and VPC peering, and by next week we will start VPC NAT gateway. So next week agenda is that by next Sunday we need to complete the VPCs, and then we have to go for the EC2 instances. Okay, so that's it from my end. And if you have any further questions, you can ask me now. So I am completing this very early. But anyways, from next Sunday, from next tomorrow onwards, you won't find this. We won't complete the session this early. So you have to wait until 12:30 also. Sometimes it will be prolonged to 12:30 also. So if you have any questions, you can ask me now. Questions, guys? Any further questions? Okay then. So I don't find any questions from your end. And this is your last demo. From tomorrow onwards, you will whoever has paid, they will get a paid link, and from that link you need to attend to the sessions. So that's all from my end. Have a nice day, and we'll meet in the next session. Okay, bye guys.